Hey there, so today I want to return to the Mary Sue, because the Mary Sue, they've cracked out the magic 8 ball, and they're making predictions on Captain Marvel. Now for you, I'm wondering exactly where you see this movie going, and when you're talking about that, that doesn't mean that you want to go, that you're a fan of it, or whatever. Do you think that this movie will be a raging success? Or are you on the other side of that, and you say magic 8 ball? Are you talking about the kind that comes out for a few bills, comes with a straw, constant nosebleeds, and a head full of remorse the next day? I mean, what are these people on about? Again, no wrong answer there. People can like or dislike what they want. But of course, these days, if you want to dislike something and you don't buy into marketing, well, you're one of those terrible people, those men saying that women-led superhero movies, they don't have an audience. I mean, you're not talking about the problems with the movie. No, you're talking about a bunch of nonsense and noise because you don't like the women folk. So, looking at the numbers that they're throwing out here in their headline, $140 million opening, and that's the low ball for the estimation. Actually, they're wanting to say that it's going to be $140 to $180 million opening weekend. Why? Because of the 24 hours of advanced ticket sales, seeing it only trailing behind Black Panther and Avengers Infinity War. Now, it's interesting seeing this as the advertisement point, which I want to talk about actually working maybe to fill seats or to actually create detractors for films. So when you see this, they had their Fandango managing editor release a statement saying, "We're seeing fantastic advanced ticket sales for Captain Marvel because it's a historic film for Marvel Studios, ones that fans have been waiting to see for a decade. As the studio's first female-driven superhero movie, Captain Marvel is a benchmark moment for the genre, for the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and for star Brie Larson, who will play the most powerful Marvel superhero to date." Yeah, so you see that marketing there. And again, doesn't talk about the addition of anything to the movie except qualifier. Now that kind of stuff actually has been successful if you look at one of the last Marvel movies that came out. You know, if you look at that, you look at the way that it was perceived, Disney thinks that worked out really well. In fact, they're going to flood the market with first of movies. You watch, you will get many and many of them. And people, maybe that will bring people in. But also, this kind of stuff, it creates detractors, not because of the first of, but because you know that this doesn't add any quality to a movie. I mean, really, what are we looking at here? We're looking at the Marvel cookie cutter formula. We're going to get origin story. We're going to get certain characters to probably try to get you in. Of course, we're going to get some Stan Lee, and they're going to market with this since, of course, what happened tragically with Stan Lee. That will be used as marketing, probably in bad taste, I would say. But looking at the way that it's advertised, I mean, they've tried to lash onto that hard too. And I wonder, does that actually hedge bets and make more money? You see the International Women's Day release, that's actually going to be something that, again, is hardly pushed. And of course, if you think that, hey, this movie out here, it looks terrible, well, look at that. It's a satisfying clapback to men everywhere who like to pretend that women don't care about comic book films, because in fact, this movie is so important that we need to set up GoFundMes in order to get young girls out there to see Captain Marvel. Not young boys, not important for them, no, young girls, because it's going to be inspirational. Now, this is the second movie to actually do that, and we'll touch on that in just a second, but look at the way that they code this. I mean, they talk about the impressionable young girls. This is going to inspire millions of girls worldwide. Of course, we're talking about Brie Larson here taking to the screen as a superhero. And when you're talking about Brie Larson coming up, you're talking about Brie Larson also being a role model. I mean, look at some of the things Brie Larson has thrown out into the ether. But of course, Brie Larson, yeah. When you say that you don't need male critics out there, still, that's okay. When you go and you say some pretty crazy stuff to time and again, hey, doesn't matter. Role model, because first stuff. And that's the thing, first stuff. In fact, they talk about the other time that this happened when people were sent to see the game-changing, note that, Marvel film Black Panther. And remember that all of this money, it's brought up beforehand. So again, this is all based on marketing. And you remember when that movie came up, it was called a cultural touchstone. In fact, you couldn't even talk about that movie without being some type of monster. Does that ring any bells? Does that sound like we're talking about the same thing here? Make no mistake when I talk about this too. I'm talking about whether or not this actually helps or hinders a movie. Do you think that that will actually get it toward that goal of making all of the money out there? And how long can you actually go and say this type of stuff? For example, when they say that this movie is actually that important, well, does that mean that you need to crowdfund successive movies? After all, when they're talking about the reasoning here, they bring up the fact that this will add new components to open doors for overall Marvel Cinematic Universe, saying that this is an important film and it's going to tie into other films. Well, if people can't go and see this film, how the heck are they going to go see other films? So why does that matter here? If you look at the reasons here, basically they say, well, that's the first woman-led film. She's going to be the most powerful superhero out there. Multiple female characters in the film that enforce diversity of women in race, careers, and talents. There's not a lot of romance feature in that. It's co-directed and scored by women. And of course, we talked about the release date. So this is heavily influenced by the idea that marketing alone says that this is important because. Now, anybody that looks at this too and thinks, man, this is not just a marketing ploy, go and look up Disney discussing this, because after Black Panther, they talked about how that was what they were bringing. They felt that they had created something that, of course, would be inspirational because they took all of the credit for doing something that essentially what did they add? They took the same generic cookie cutter model, but they added first stuff. Now, again, do you think that within all of that discussion, do you think that we're talking about a movie that has the capacity to make this type of money, $140 to $180 million? Do you think that we're going to look at a movie with a monster opening and then it's going to be successful as you continue on down through that? Because when I look at this movie, like I say, I don't see a first stuff. What I see is a company that thinks they're going to be very successful with first stuff, talking about it that way. But again, cookie cutter model, same movie that we've seen probably 20 times now plus. And again, looking at the certain character here, looking at the scope, how long do you remain invested in that specific type of movie? It's not going to take a lot of failure before, one of these movies, sooner or later, it's going to trip over itself. You can't continue to do first stuff movies for too long. How many years can you continue to go down that? But again, that's neither here nor there. Going in, looking at how it's marketed, again, Stan Lee being added to it, do you think that it has the ability to open up and to do really, really well? Or do you think that all of this stuff pretty much is all just hype, and all of this noise and hype people don't respond to? Anyhow, tell me what you think. If you like this kind of content too, well, first of all, leave comments for sure. But subscribe. Hit that stinking little bell, because YouTube might actually tell you when I have something come up. Like things that you like. Don't like things indiscriminately. If you don't like a video, don't like the thing. But if you do, hit that little like button. Wear that sucker out. Also, if you want to go beyond that and support the channel, there are links within the description, and make sure to come back and check out new content daily. Above all of that, I appreciate you showing up, so leave your comments, let me know what you think on this. I am curious where people stand, and as always, thank you so much for showing up. We'll do it again, tomorrow.